Hello, hello, hello. This is Talking Manchester United, a United Stand podcast with myself, Paul Gardner, and joining me, as always, is Ash Burns. Ash, how are you, my friend?
Yes, I'm not bad, mate. I'm not bad. International break is over. Football's back at the weekend. It's all going off, innit? How about yourself?
Yeah, not bad, mate. Like yourself, I'm excited for Premier League football to return. The international break is a bore for most people. You know, you get some that are still very patriotic and love to support England, and fair play to them. Matthew is also joining us. Matthew McFadyen, how are you, my friend?
You know what? I'm actually good considering the news today. It's been a terrible international break for us north of the border. The less said about that, the better. But no, that news has pretty much brightened up my week.
Excellent. Good to hear. Well, of course, we're going to talk about it. It'd be a bit daft not to. So Ole is now permanent manager. Announcement this morning. I'm absolutely delighted for it. Just get your initial reactions. I'll come to you first, Matthew. What are your thoughts?
You know what? I've always been in the camp of waiting until the end of the season before you do it, because it just puts unnecessary pressure on a manager, and it's just something that can be avoided completely. However, I mean, the absolute smile on my face when I woke up this morning by my dad saying, Ole's been appointed. I mean, it's probably one of the best moments this season. Just actually knowing that, you know, the board haven't messed up again.
Better than beating PSG?
Yeah, well, yeah, that
Really?
exactly. Mourinho leaving as well. All these moments. But yeah, Ole getting a full-time job is, I think it's what the vast majority of us United fans were wanting, but not really expecting at this specific time.
Yeah, I think I would agree. I think we had this discussion a couple of weeks ago. I'm not sure if you were on with us at this point, Matthew, but I think me and Ash were talking about it might have even been in response to a tweet we received from somebody. But I think at the time, I fully expected an announcement to be made at the end of the season, because my opinion at the time was, and you know, it still might be the case, that if we announced him before the end of the season, you know, we might start seeing some complacency, not necessarily from him, but from the players. Obviously, I hope that's not the case. I'm sure it won't be, but it's just one of those little things in my mind that I thought could happen if we did announce him as the manager early. Ash, what are your thoughts? Your initial thoughts?
Yeah, I'm chuffed to bits for him. I really am. He's done a fantastic job since coming in. I'm a little bit like you, that I was hoping that we'd hold off until the summer, just to, you know, keep a bit of continuity. We were doing really well. Everyone was happy. And that little bit of uncertainty, you know, kept everyone maybe a little bit more hungry, a little bit less complacent, like you said. But maybe that's me being a little bit blinkered in the fact and concentrating too much on this season. You know, him being appointed now, you know, it looked like it was going to happen after everything, especially after the PSG game. It was pretty much nailed on. And yeah, as I said, maybe a bit blinkered, but it's great in the sense that we can prepare for the summer now, rather than, you know, he's got a couple of months now rather than a few weeks if we did appoint him sort of end of May, start of June. So that's a big positive. Also, another positive, I think maybe some of the players who are a little bit more reluctant to sign new contracts could sign new contracts now. That could be a positive. But like you said, yeah, I'm just hoping we don't get complacent. We don't relax a little bit now that, you know, the pressure's off, everything's sorted. I'm hoping everyone pushes on to make top 4 or top 3, hopefully. But yeah, I'm absolutely delighted. Rumours are that Mick and Michael Carrick and everyone is staying on exactly the same. So that's just as good news for me as it is that Ole's signed. I think they're working really well together. So yeah, absolutely chuffed to bits for them. Glad he's manager, and just hope he does well now.
Yeah, I think that's a very important point to make, is what's going to happen with the backroom staff, McFadyen, Michael Carrick, McKenna, etc., etc. And as you quite rightly say, the rumour is that they are staying. I think it was the Times with the people to originally come out with that. I think I'd believe it less so if it was something that was released by the Mirror or the Sun.
I think the BBC did sort of jump on that bandwagon as well, if I'm not mistaken.
They have they?
Yeah.
It wouldn't surprise me. I think because at the end of the day, it's the manager that picks those people, not the board. You know, the manager decides who he wants to bring in to work with him. And I can't imagine Ole going for anyone other than who he's got with him now.
He said in his press conference as well, to be fair.
He did he? There you go,
he said that I don't want to make any changes. He said, I want to continue the way we are. And he said that none of the current staff have come knocking on his door saying that they fancy a change. And he's told, apparently, the Glazers and Ed that he wants to keep the staff exactly the same, as far as he knows. So
brilliant. Well, that's good news. God, Matthew, sorry.
Oh, no, I was just saying that's absolutely perfect because like you could get a different manager in and they completely reshuffle the backroom staff.
Like Moyes.
Like what we saw with Moyes, and that
Yeah.
delays it even further in terms of the progress. So actually hearing that is brilliant news as well.
Yeah, we can't argue the fact that it's deserved, even if we did hope or think that it was going to be announced in the summer. There's absolutely no doubt that even at this point, he deserves the job. I mean, look at what he's done. Results aside, you know, he's made some big calls.
Yeah.
You know, he came in and the first thing he'd done was made sure that Rashford and Lukaku and Lingard were playing up front, you know, dropping Lukaku to the bench. Kept Sanchez on the sidelines. Yeah, okay, he's had a few injuries, but, you know, there has been times when he's played and he's been fit, but he hasn't, you know, felt the pressure to have to start him because he's a big money earner. One of the first things he done was got rid of Fellaini.
Yeah.
You know, so he's come in, you know, he would have had a say in, obviously he has a say in, you know, whether Lukaku and Sanchez play or not. That's purely down to him. He may not have had all of the say in the Fellaini sale, but I can guarantee that if another manager would have come in, Fellaini probably would still be here right now. I think with Ole coming in, that spelled the end for Fellaini, and Ole would have obviously made that known to him, the board, the player's agent. You know, look, this is my vision. Your game time is going to be very limited, essentially. And then obviously Fellaini probably would have made the decision then to move on. But it's Ole's influence, if you see what I mean. Yeah. So there's that. You look at what he's done as well in games where we've been completely depleted squad-wise, especially that night at PSG. To be able to pull that out of the bag with got Pogba suspended, you know, our best players out injured, to be able to pull off results like that with a depleted squad, which he did on one or two occasions, is just absolutely fantastic. And, you know, that he can show that he can set the team up, you know, tactically, as well as, you know, positionally, well, same thing, but you know what I'm saying, to get a result. And that's one of the things that a lot of people, I think, worried about. Does he have that, you know, that about him? And I think he's demonstrated that very well. And I think not many people would argue that he fully deserves the job. And one of the other things that I like about this as well, and this was obviously, this applied when he first took over as temporary manager, but it brings some familiarity back to the club. So I'll throw this question out. I'll come to you first, Matthew. What does this appointment mean for the club, for the players, and for future transfers even?
I think it just means that we've got Manchester United back. Like, don't get me wrong, there's a few other managers out there that you could say, yeah, they're better managers, like Zidane or whatever, obviously if he was still available. But what Zidane, Pochettino, all those sorts of managers aren't is Manchester United managers. And that's, I think, the most important thing right now, because we've tried all the different formulas. We've tried Sir Alex's recommendation, that was Moyes, didn't work out. We tried the tactician, the guy who, you know, likes to get the youth involved, playing this kind of possession-based style, Louis van Gaal, didn't work out. Then we just tried the proven winner, the guy who's, you know, gone to numerous clubs, done absolutely everything. Obviously, that didn't work out as well. So I think the next logical step was actually appointing a Manchester United manager. And if, you know, there's very few people out there who live and bleed United more than Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. So I think in terms of having our identity back, that's by far the best thing, because it means that, you know, people see Manchester United for what it is again, rather than this, you know, absolutely turgid style of football with a bang average manager getting consistently disappointing results. We've actually turned into that team that, you know, has that attacking flair, has the speed back, has Old Trafford on its feet again. So that's probably, for me, the most important thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we have to give credit where credit's due. And we do, really, when it comes to Ed Woodward. When he does something good, we do praise him. He's had his say on this as well. His comments, I won't obviously read that word for word, but he basically says, you know, Ole's been brilliant, getting all these results, etc. Brings a wealth of experience, both as a player and as a coach. You know, he wants to bring youth players through. He's got a deep understanding of the culture of the club, and basically says that for all of this, it makes him the right person. Now, Ed Woodward did say at the beginning of, well, not at the beginning, but when Jose was fired, he did say that, you know, we're going to bring in somebody temporary. It's going to be Ole, and we're going to spend the next, whatever it was, 6 months or whatever it was, or the remainder of the season, properly going and looking for a manager, putting the time in, making sure they get the right person to fit the club. And I think that he's done exactly that. I think Ole Gunnar Solskjaer probably would have always been a potential candidate before he even, you know, took his first game against Cardiff, because of what he, you know, because of his history with the club. Obviously they'd have had one or two others as well, but I think you got to give credit where credit's due, Ash. Ed's got it spot on this time around.
Yeah, and it is a nice change. And like, you know, reflecting what both of you said, especially Matthew, you know, we've tried everything else. You know, we've tried, you know, so many different approaches, proven winners, you know, tactically sound managers who've got a wealth of experience, the tailor-made sort of replacement that was David Moyes. And as you said, we've tried all of them. So it's about time we got our identity back. There's nothing, I don't want to say there's nothing to lose, but we can't keep following, you know, suit and appointing the same style of managers. And I think it's an, I won't say it's an obvious choice, but I think it sort of fell into Ed Woodward's lap quite nicely for him. You know, credit where it's due. He's had the balls, and he stood up and he's made the decision sort of mid-season, you know, which isn't always easy to do. The easy thing would have been to wait until the summer to let everything pan out and, you know, to let the dust settle and see where we are. But fair play, you know, in my mind, that, you know, that almost makes a level of forward planning and forward thinking that normally we don't see with the Glazers and Ed Woodward, which is nice to see. But I think, yeah, Ollie's made the job so easy for Ed Woodward to do, because I don't think anyone would have thought we'd be where we are, you know, when Ollie first took over. So I think Ed Woodward had no choice. Whether or not that there were other candidates in the job, I'm sure there were, and I'm sure he was looking at other people. But yeah, from the job that Ollie and his staff have done, I think it was a no-brainer. But yeah, credit to him for having the guts to make a decision mid-season and let Ollie allow him to plan for next season already, which I think is a big relief to him and the staff as well. So yeah, fair play. Got to give him credit. And yeah, moving forward.
Excellent. And it will be great. Like, the players love him. We know that. Yeah. They've been very open publicly as well. A lot of the players showing their support for him, saying they hope he gets the job, you know, almost, you know, giving their own little messages to Ed, so, you know, so to speak. But I think it'll be good for the players. They'll definitely have a lot more freedom than what they've had under the last two regimes. We all know Van Gaal was very sort of regimented in his philosophy, a word we become to hate after a while. Mourinho, we knew players like Pogba were restricted. You know, players didn't have that freedom that they would like, to be fair, and they're going to get that now under Ollie. He's shown that, and that's what you need. You want players to be able to express themselves, let them do what they do best, essentially. Obviously, there's got to be some sort of discipline, and that will be there. We have seen that, but that's going to be good for the players. Future transfers, do you think that? Because actually, this brings me to a tweet that we had from Alex. You'll know Alex from formerly of the United Stand. I don't think he goes on there much anymore. He tweeted, it's AXAS23 at AXAS23, Alex. Ollie does deserve the job, but I do worry that he'll be a yes man and accept the lack of signings that he'll get. Now, it's a good point. And I read that and I thought that is something that I have also considered since Ollie took the job, was that if he did get it full time, is he going to be the sort of person that's just going to be like, you know, Ed's lapdog sort of thing? Is he going to have, you know, if he believes that he's right in something, will he push for it? That makes sense. What do you reckon, Ash?
I'm a bit torn on this one. I think yes and no, and I'll explain what I mean. I think he might be a yes man in some respects, just due to the fact that he loves the club so much and he really wants to manage this football club. So I think he's going to try and keep everyone on side, especially the Glazers, especially Ed Woodward. But on the flip side, I don't think in terms of transfers and signings, I don't think he's going to be as much of a yes man, because some of the comments that he's made over the last day, especially in his press conference before and in the interview following the announcement, you know, we've seen the likes of Fellaini go. As you mentioned before, he's had the guts to drop Lukaku and drop Sanchez, big money earners, just, you know, for the sake of the style of football we're playing and to improve results. And also one other thing which I really liked, one of the journalists in his press conference before the Watford press conference, I think it was, you know, after the announcement, they said that, you know, I'm sure you're going to be glad that people won't be asking you about your future and whatnot. And he said, do you think now, though, that the announcement will maybe instill some complacency in the team? You know, and basically all the sort of fears that we're having. And Ole was asked this question, and that was the key word that was highlighted: complacent. You know, will it make the players complacent? And Ole,
it's exactly like you say, it's exactly what we've been saying, isn't it?
Yeah, and straight down the barrel, Ole looks and he goes, well, if you've got that, it was something along the lines of complacent players will not succeed at Manchester United.
Yes.
and that's what he said straight down the camera. And I thought, do you know what? That's give me even more confidence in him. And I really hope he can back that up and say, you know, if, you know, I'm not going to name any names, but we know players that maybe have thrown their toys at the pram or maybe down tools a little bit. And, you know, we know player power is so strong in the game nowadays, but I'm hoping that Ole is going to be, and I think he will. You know, he's such a humble and nice character, but I really do think there's a ruthless streak in him, which I think is essential for any sort of top level manager.
Well, I'm pretty sure Ryan Giggs has said that. I think it was Ryan Giggs anyway. He had an interview recently, and I'm pretty sure that he came out and said that Ole has that side about him.
Yeah,
you know, if he needs to be tough, he'll be tough.
Yeah, and I think it's essential. And I mean, we've all seen the pictures of him laying into his play, the video of him laying into his players and training, and whatnot. So I think he's got it, and it really instilled more confidence in me when he said that. And it wasn't sort of directed at the players, but you knew that the players will know about it. If they're complacent or if they're, you know, not giving 100%, he's going to know about it. He's going to drop them, or they're going to be out the door. So yeah, that's. Going back to yes and yes man, I think he will be a yes man in some respects, but I don't think he'll settle for second best. I think he'll want to mould the squad in a particular way, and I'm hoping that the board and Ed will see what's happened over the last 6 years. The way we've gone about things hasn't been successful, and I think they're going to have to almost, especially with the pressure of the fans. You know, the fans have been behind pretty much every manager that we've appointed after Sir Alex, but I don't think you know, I don't think the fan base has been behind a manager as much, nowhere near as much as Ole now, because he's a United player, he's a United manager, like Matthew said. So I think the pressure is going to mount from the fans to want support from the owners, and we need investment. It's clear to see, and I think a few players will be on their bike in the summer, and I think he'll mould the squad into the way he wants. I'm hoping anyway. I'm hoping the board has learnt their lessons over the last couple of years.
In terms of him being a yes man for lack of transfers, I think I'm going to say no. Essentially, I don't think I don't think he'll need to be. Now, the reason I say that is because again, there were reports of this new transfer strategy that Manchester United are going to adopt, in that they're going to be primarily focused on youthful signings. So no more of these, you know, marquee late 20s, you know, quick fix signings. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? It hasn't worked with Sanchez. It worked. Well, we didn't actually need to buy him, but when we brought in Zlatan, that, you know, it was good for a season. There's other players as well that haven't quite worked out. Di Maria, Falcao, Sanchez. You know, players like that. So I think with this new strategy, going for more youthful prospects, I think what we'll probably see is that the transfer fees that we're going to be paying will be relatively small. I'm not saying we're going to be going out spending 15-20 million on players, but, you know, cheap nowadays, you're looking at 30 to 40 million. That's cheap nowadays. That's, you know, that's pennies compared to what, you know, you see out there at the moment. So I think we'll probably see a lot more signings around that sort of region, youthful, you know, players of potential, to bring them through, bed them into the squad so they can take in the ethos of the club and grow that way, which is exactly how it was done for the most part under Sir Alex Ferguson, because he himself even said that he always preferred to bring in players between the ages of 18 to 24, because then they had time to bed themselves in, learn about the club, sort of absorb the culture of the club, as it were, and bed them into that winning mentality, and get them playing and get them confident, so they have time to develop. And I think we're going to start seeing that again under Ole. And so I don't think that he's going to need to be a yes man, because I think that the board will be more willing to spend less on potential than spending huge amounts on worldies, which I think is what the transfer strategy was or has been over the last few years, which Ed Woodward did actually publicly say, didn't he? One marquee signing every season, and it hasn't worked. So I wrote an article for the United Stand website saying, are Man United about to hit the reset button when they sacked Jose? And it's beginning to look like that's exactly what they're doing. Transfer strategy, new manager, all these different things. A director of football could be coming in soon. It just looks like they've completely hit the reset button, and they're taking a huge turn and doing things a lot different, and hopefully it will reap rewards. I mean, what are your thoughts, Matthew, on Ole? Are you worried that there might be a bit of a yes man aspect to him in his job role, or do you think that he's got the metal?
I don't really think he'll be a yes man. I think, to be fair though, see, when you're getting yourself in the door, when you're trying to get the manager's job, you kind of do have to be a bit of a yes man to some extent, to please the board and say, right, this is what I want, I'll work with you. But that exact quote that Ash mentioned, the one about complacency, as soon as I saw that on TV, I thought, yep, this is my guy here, this is my manager. And it just shows that him dropping Sanchez for quite a few games, dropping Lukaku as well, playing him very occasionally up front as opposed to every single game, it seemed like, with Mourinho. Those sort of decisions just say, right, I'm in charge here, I pick the players that I want, not in relation to wages or status or whatever. I'm just picking the best players who will work for this team. And that, I think, is probably one of the most refreshing things that you'll see in terms of Ole compared to the last few managers. So in terms of being a yes man, I don't think he will be whatsoever. And like you mentioned, that kind of new strategy with signings, it's almost like we're going back to the Fergie days. Obviously, it's way too early to completely judge it based on that, but there's hints of that now. In terms of the signings, obviously the rumours and stuff don't really mean too much, but I can imagine in summer to maybe sign a few players who are in that kind of 18, 19 to 25-year-olds age range, as opposed to those established marquee players who will come in here for like 2 years or whatever, and then just kind of go on a bit of a decline. So I don't really have any issues in regards to him being a yes man or whatever in terms of the squad complacency as well, because he's pretty much said it himself in the interview that there's no room for complacency here. And yeah, Ole, don't really think he's going to be a yes man.
No, I think I would agree. I don't think he's going to be a yes man. I don't think he'll need to be. I think that's the key thing here. But yeah, I put a tweet out earlier on today. I don't know if either of you seen it. I think Ash did. I think he liked it. About the appointment of Ole. But we also have to consider the fact that it's still the same people in charge above him, i.e. the Glazers and Ed Woodward. So, we shouldn't be thinking to ourselves right now, because Ole's in charge, that we're suddenly going to be, he's suddenly going to get tens and tens or hundreds and hundreds of millions given to him to bring our squad to the level of Man City. They're the team to beat at the moment, aren't they? They're the current Premier League champions. I still think they'll pip Liverpool to it this season. That obviously remains to be seen. But to be up there battling with them, not just that, but also to be challenging for the Champions League, because that's where we want to be. It's not. We're not going to be. That's not going to happen. We're still going to be 3 or 4 seasons away yet, if you ask me, from being challenging on all fronts. We probably could mount a better title challenge next season, but I can't see it myself. So I just think we need to manage our expectations a little bit, not get too overexcited. Be excited that the football's going to be a lot better. Be excited that we're going to be in a top 4 battle, but we're not going to be sitting around 6th and 7th, trying desperately to get to it. I think we'll become a bit more comfortable next season with better football, more entertaining football. I think we will bring in 2 or 3 names in the summer. They may not be big names that everyone's household names, but there'll be names that will want to be at the club. They'll be scouted properly. They'll be vetted properly. They'll be players that fit the Manchester United mould, and I think that will help us obviously going forward. But I think we need to manage our expectations and not get too overexcited and just be, just enjoy the ride for the first few seasons, so to speak. But I do think next season it'll be another battle for top four. I don't know if any of you got anything else you want to add to that.
Don't think so. I think there was a few comments today about. I'm sure Ole was asked something about the structure or something or other, and he said that the way the club is run is fantastic, and a lot of people scoffed at that. But as you said, Matthew, he's getting his foot in the door. He can't turn around and say the Glazers are a bunch of pricks and I can't wait. Do you know what I mean? It's one of those. So
I've seen a few Twitter accounts mention that as well.
Yeah,
why isn't he going against the Glazers? Well,
I know. In his first day kicking the door. Yeah. So of course he's got to say that. I think he'll be, quietly expressing his concerns with certain aspects. But yeah, he's not going to turn around and flick a couple of fingers up at the Glazers on his first day in the job. So just calm down on that, I'd say.
I mean, let's not be blind to the fact that the Glazers have backed previous managers.
Yeah,
it's not like we haven't spent any money.
No,
I think what everyone's issue is, and it's my issue as well, is that the state our squad is in at the moment. When you consider the Deadwood, we are a long way off having a squad capable of competing on all fronts.
Yep.
And I think over the years, either the board have failed to realise that because of their lack of football knowledge or whatever, or they're not interested in being in that position. They just want to be ticking over, keeping the money coming in.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I've completely forgot where I was going with that, to be honest. Anyway, I'll come back to that in a minute. Should we move forward to the Watford preview? Because that game's coming up thick and fast. Looking forward to that one. It's not going to be easy, but take it away, Ash.
Saturday, 3 o'clock. So
it is.
Yeah, Watford. It's an interesting one. We struggled a little bit with the two games before the international break. None of us like international breaks, but as we mentioned before, it was probably a good time for us to have a break coming off the back of two losses. It's not the most ideal game coming into off the break because I think Watford. We know they're a decent side. They're one of the best of the rest, as Ole has said. I think they're lying in 8th position, is it 7th or 8th? We know what they're capable of. We know they can cause us problems. But I think with the majority of the squad having had a rest, with the good news of Ole coming in on a permanent basis now, I think it's probably a good time to. I'm glad. Put it this way: I'm glad we're not playing at a City or a Liverpool or anything now. I'm glad we're coming into a game which is going to test us, but it's not a ridiculously difficult game on paper. So looking at their form going the last couple of games, they had a 2-1 win against Palace in the FA Cup. Then they had a 3-1 loss against City, a 2-1 win against Leicester, a 5-0 loss against Liverpool, and then a 5-1 win against Cardiff. So very, very back and forth, very patchy form. Again, it seems to be every preview we do, we're saying that they're conceding goals and they're scoring goals. It seems to be happening with every team that we come up against at the moment. And it's going to be an interesting one. How do you think we'll fare going into this one? Do you think the appointment of Ole will maybe hinder the squad performance, or will it? What do you think? Will it elevate us, Matt? I'll come to you first, Matthew.
I think it's just going to do absolute wonders, to be honest.
Yeah.
I was at Ole's first home game against Huddersfield, and the atmosphere, and that was just honestly one of the best atmospheres I've ever seen in a football game. Everyone was just absolutely bouncing, singing all the songs, and you can kind of see that in the performances and just the overall confidence of the team. So the fact that, he's been appointed full-time manager now, there is questions about complacency, but to be honest, I can't really see that. I think everyone wants to succeed, not only for themselves and for Man United, but for Ole too. So I think going into this game, Watford obviously have incredibly patchy form, like you said. Was it like 5-0 and then they've won 5-1?
Yeah.
We don't really know what to expect from them. But the first time what we've seen from them in years is the fact that they actually have a consistent starting 11. Because every single year they just seem to completely change their entire club from back to front. And now you've actually seen a very much consistent model from them. So at least they've, got that kind of consistency in that side. But yeah, like I think Ole said, they are the best of the rest. I think they're 1 point behind Wolverhampton at the moment. So they will be a tough team. But at the same time, I think we should have enough quality and more importantly, enough confidence to actually get the win here. And I think getting this win is probably the most important win in quite a while, because, we've lost the last 2 games, including one in the league. And right now, the top 4 races, I think it's probably the tightest top 4 race I've known in recent years. I think to kick that off with a win is just going to be the most vital thing.
Yeah, I agree. Pretty essential that we get the 3 points. Paul, what do you reckon? Is it going to elevate the squad, or is it going to hinder them? He's dead.
Oh, well.
I was on mute. My microphone muted, and I was chatting away, and then I could hear you butting in, and I thought, don't talk over me, that's a bit rude. I suddenly realised, oh yeah, I'm muted. Yeah, I mean, it's like I was saying earlier on about how before I was concerned that there might be some complacency setting in, but after what you said about his comment saying, complacent players don't succeed at United, that, I'm thinking, okay, fair enough. He's obviously going to drill this into them, and because he's not stupid. All these concerns that we have, I'm sure he's thought about all of this, spoken to his staff, spoken to the players, told them what's what, etc., etc. So now I'm thinking, do you know what? I think he's going to have these players revved up. He's going to sit there with them always. All right, this is it now. This is the beginning. This is where it all starts. It's official. This is now my permanent job. I'm here to guide you guys to be the best permanently. Yeah. So this is where it starts. And I think he'll just have them fired up for this game. But now, we said in the last preview for Wolves about how Wolves are currently best of the rest. They're very well organised. They'll be a difficult team to beat. And look what happened. Now, Watford, as Matthew has quite rightly said, are only 1 point and 1 place below Wolves and are actually in better form than Wolves at the moment. So let's not go into this Watford game thinking that we're going to be winning 3 or 4-0. That said, as you've quite rightly said, Matt, Ash, their form has been patchy. You look at their recent results against the lesser teams is where they're performing. They're winning games.
Yeah.
But against the bigger teams, Liverpool lost 5-0. Man City lost 3-1. Unlike Wolves, against the bigger teams, Watford are struggling. So that could play into our hands. And again, at home, I'm thinking we should win this game. I think that the appointment of Ole is going to elevate the players. I think he'll have them spurred and ready to go.
Yeah, I agree. And I think more so, I think the players are going to be raring to get back on the pitch and perform and show, what they can do, because I think it's all well and good having a caretaker manager, on a temporary basis. But as you said, he's been confirmed now. He is going to be the one making the plans for next season. So I think that could have a positive effect on the players as well. They're going to want to perform, and they're going to want to show them that they want to be here and performing next season as well. So yeah, I think it'll elevate them, and I think it'll improve our performance. Fingers crossed. Looking at their squad, then, I mean, you look at the past couple of games that they've played. Again, they have had patchy form, but they have scored quite a few goals as well. Mainly coming through the likes of Andre Gray, Troy Deeney, Gerard Deulofeu. I've also put Pereira down and Doucouré as midfield options. They could cause us, a few problems. Anyone else that you can see them causing us problems, or have I covered pretty much everything there? Gray, Deeney, Deulofeu, Pereira, and Doucouré I've got down.
I've mentioned the keeper as well, Ben Foster. He always seems to have an absolute worldie against United.
Yeah, that's very true.
Yeah. Every single time he just turns into David Gea on steroids. Yeah. I don't know what it is with him.
Yeah.
It's
the same with Tom Heaton for Burnley as well, isn't it? He seems to have
worldies against us. Mediocre keepers.
Yeah.
That just for some reason seem to do it.
We need to stop shooting the ball at them.
But no, I think you've covered all the players there. I think the only other one as well, really, to keep an eye on, and we seem to be saying players that play in this position quite frequently recently, and that's the left side, Jose Holebas.
Oh yeah,
yep.
He's got a few goals himself, and he's joint assist leader as well for Watford. So he's another player to watch out for, especially if we're playing Ashley Young again down the right hand side, which I'm hoping we don't.
Yeah.
But yeah, other than Doucouré, Gray, Pereira, Deulofeu, and Deeney, Holebas is doing other players. So that's half of their starting 11 that we need to be wary of.
Yeah,
which is why the likes of them and Wolves are where they are in the league, because they're decent sides. And with Watford being in form, we can't go into this game, cocky, as it were, thinking and expecting to win. It's going to be a tough game. I do think we'll win. Like I said, against Wolves as well, I think it'll be a narrow victory. But I think because obviously of Watford's record against the bigger teams compared to Wolves, I think we will actually win this game. But those are the players that I think we need to watch out for. We all know about Troy Deeney. We know about De La Feu and his pace, Pereira, and we know about these players, and that they can cause problems for us. So we need to be careful.
Yeah, just making sure that the back is solid. You did mention Ashley Young. I'm assuming he's going to play coming off the back of a suspension. Ole might want to keep an experienced head at the back, but we never know. So segueing us sort of into that 11 then, who do you think is going to start coming back off the international break? A lot of players are fresh. A lot of players have overcome injury now to fight themselves back into the starting 11. Do you think we'll change it, or do you think we'll stick with what has been working so far under Ole? Matthew, who have you got as your starting 11?
I think you're probably going to stick with what's been the tried and tested formation and lineup as well. So in goal, I'd go with Dabatea, obviously. Right back, I kind of want to start Delo, but at the same time, I think Ashley Young's going to play. Obviously, like you said, he's back from his suspension.
Yeah.
Centre backs are going to be Smalling. Lindelof seems to be the only competent centre backs this season. Left back, go for Luke Shaw as well. Yeah. Midfield's a bit of a weird one because Nemanja Matic has been pretty poor recently. He started off well under Ole, but he's put in some absolute clangers now and then. And to be honest, I'd probably say he'll start, even though I'd rather see someone like McTominay or Fred start there. Yeah. I think the other central midfielders speak for themselves, really. Herrera and Pogba. I'm sure Herrera doesn't have an injury.
I think he's back now, isn't he?
Yeah. Assuming he's back, he'll slot in there. Right wing, I'd probably say Lingard's going to start there. Or maybe even Delo as well. One of those two players.
Yeah.
And then up top is going to be Rashford and Martial. I think that whole sort of injury thing for Rashford was, one of those injuries with inverted commas.
Yeah.
We saw it a lot under Alex Ferguson. I don't really think there's anything to be too concerned about that. So, yeah, I could probably see him starting up front. I think it's just going to be the kind of same old lineup, really.
Yeah, I mean, looks that way. And I think the whole Rashford thing was, there was a lot of reports that he'd been carrying an injury since Liverpool and been playing through the pain. So I'm glad that he did have a quotation marks injury, and he got a chance to give it a rest. So hopefully he'll be back fighting fit. Paul, you pretty much the same, or you got any changes in there?
Well, it's difficult because we don't know who's fit and who's not, unless there was something today that I've missed. Like I said, I've been working all day today, so I've not even had a chance to catch up on the press conference. But
it'll be tomorrow, I think, that they always embargo the second half of the press conference. I think it's until, is it Friday evening or Friday afternoon?
Like Friday at 10:30 p.m. or something.
That's it, yeah.
Right.
So I think we'll find out tomorrow night. So late on, I'm sure the journalists would have asked about injuries or anything. So I think tomorrow night we'll get a better idea.
I had a feeling it was usually on a Friday. But yeah, I mean, if you look at the current state of play and what the papers are saying, half of our team are out injured. Lukaku, Rashford, Martial, Lingard, Sanchez, Greenwood, Shaw. All of those players are carrying injuries. All of them slight doubts for the weekend. And I'm thinking, I reckon probably all of them are fine to play. So based on all of them being fit, maybe not Lukaku. So I think his injury was legitimate, I believe. I'm not sure. Other than him and maybe Shaw, I think the rest of them will probably be fit to play. So the team that I would like to see and that I think will play is De Gea in goal. It'll be 4 at the back. And I think Dalot will be given a shot at right back. I don't know why, it's got a feeling, so I'm going with it. Dalot, Smalling, Lindelof and Shaw. I do think Shaw's fit.
Yeah.
Midfield, Herrera, Pogba and Matic. With a front three of Lingard, Rashford, and Martial. One of Watford's key weaknesses is keeping possession of the ball. So I think if you play your quick players, Lingard, Rashford, and Martial, with Herrera biting around in the midfield behind them, I think if we play with a high press, closing them down quickly, I think we can overpower them that way and stop them from playing that way with our quickest players on the pitch. And I think that's the best way to go.
And I think being at home as well, I think that'll that'll play into our hands in that respect. I think we'll be more on the front foot. We'll be more inclined to win the ball back and control possession and ball control in the centre of the park. So yeah, seems to be the general consensus that we will stick with what's been working. Just we never know what happens. I think we're a lot more.
The thing is, though, we've not seen that team play for a little while because of all the injuries.
Yeah,
it's been a while since Lingard, Rashford, and Martial all played together up front. We did see Herrera, Pogba, Matic play against Wolves, although it wasn't great performance by any of them. But again, they'd only just come back from injury, Matic and Herrera. So it's been a while since we've actually seen that team play together. So I would like to see that team play together again.
Yeah, it'd be nice, as you rightly said, against Wolves. Herrera and Matic just didn't look at the races. They looked like they've been. I know that there was a lot was said that they could have been ready for the Arsenal game, but they looked rusty, both of them.
Yeah,
and I think having a bit of a rest and bringing them back into the fold now, they should be rarer to go, and I'm sure they will be. So looking at them predictions, what are we thinking for scoreline, gentlemen?
Matthew, do you want to go first?
I think it's going to be a routine game, to be honest. In terms of a score prediction, I'd say 3-1.
3-1?
I can see us conceding one of those scrappy goals where it's like Dini or whatever chest it to Delafeu, who's just going to run through the defence, and you're thinking, why has he even got there in the first place? Apart from that, should be an easy one.
Smalling's fallen over somewhere.
Yeah, exactly.
Or, that's it. I get it. Yeah, okay. 3-1 is just in Paul.
Yeah, it's a difficult one without really having any idea of who's fit and who's likely to play. It's quite difficult. But I'm thinking if the players that I would like to be playing are playing, then I'm going to go with Matthew, and I'm going to say 3-1.
Okay, I've gone with 2-0.
And I say that after I said that we shouldn't really be expecting him to go out there. I'm not saying that we're going to win 3-1 easily. 80% possession, 15 shots on target. Do you know what I mean? With Watford having barely anything, I think it'll be. I think they'll give us a run for our money and make it difficult for us and have a few chances of their own. Yeah. But I do think that our strikers will be on form.
Yeah, could be one of those where Watford score first, we get 2 quick goals, and then we're sort of back and forth for most of the game, and then we get another late one to set us up for the 3-1, sorry. But yeah, I'm going for 2-0. I think, as you said before, Paul, I think the high press and the pressure and the freshness hopefully will set us up well for the game. And I'm hoping we can keep them quiet and get a win. Like I said, get back on the title, on the top 4 and top 3 race, and put some pressure on the teams around us.
Excellent.
That's it. Good. Marvellous. That is it for the preview.
Okay, well, do you want to take it over to Twitter?
We can indeed.
I think we've got 1 or 2.
Yeah, I think there was quite a few tweets. So Thursday, podcast day. So get your discussion points in below. So David Makins, Ole's at the wheel, discuss. We did discuss that in some depth at the start. John Chambers, do you think Ole was the first choice, or do you think there were inquiries made for Poch?
Do you want to go first, Matt?
I think at the time of hiring Ole as the caretaker manager, he definitely wasn't the first choice, but I think Woodward's comments about him really speaks for itself in terms of, he's actually seen it from a results point of view as opposed to a commercial point of view. He said, the results are actually so good that I really can't ignore it now. So, in the weeks leading up to today where he's been announced, I think he was the first choice. But when he was actually announced as caretaker manager, I don't think he was whatsoever.
I think a lot of the decision was made not just based on the results, but also, again, it's just something I've read, based on what he's done off the pitch as well, behind the scenes with the players and the staff. There's a lot of stuff that he's done behind the scenes that's impressed Ed Woodward as well, which again helped him with that decision.
Yeah, I think, when he first came in, I think Poch was the number 1 target. And I think we were, well, obviously we don't know, but I reckon we were ready to go all in for him, to be honest. And I think Ole was just there, as we thought when he came in, just to steady the ship, not worry too much about results or league position, just to get everyone positive, good outlook in the club again, and everyone enjoying their football. But as you said, everything that he's done has gone hand in hand. And I think, as I mentioned before, I think it was difficult to ignore for Ed Woodward, and it was almost impossible not to give him the job. And I think it made Ed Woodward's job a lot easier given the results and everything that Ole's done. As you mentioned before, just the feel-good factor right throughout the club. So yeah, certainly in the last couple of weeks, he was 100%. He was the only candidate for the job, I'd have to say, given everything he'd done. But not when he came, certainly not. I don't think he was. I suppose he was in the running, but quite a long odds, I'd say. Moving on, who would you like to see? This is Sir Zach Brown. Who would you like to see in the director of football role? Lots of folks suggesting Van der Sar would be the ideal man, myself included. Would love to know if you have any other names you think would be up for it. Whoever wants to go first.
Van der Sar.
All right,
go on. Yep, go for it.
Yeah, sure. I'd probably say Van der Sar as well. I think there's quite a few sporting directors out there, and there's been a few names mentioned, guys like Cantona or whatever, when really they don't fit that mold whatsoever. Like the sporting director or director of football, whatever you want to call it, is pretty much a sort of modern day chief scout. And what team in Europe is known for producing consistent young talent and getting bargains and turning them into really good players to sell in the future? Ajax. I think having him there, well, having his experience at Ajax and experience at Man United is just going to be absolutely perfect for us.
Yeah, Paul?
I think I would mirror those comments. I mean, obviously he's got experience in this sort of a role, which is something that this is something we spoke about weeks ago when there was first talk of a director of football being appointed. One of the criteria would be that someone, it has to be not someone just because they know the club, but it can be someone who doesn't know anything about Man United. As long as they know what they're doing in that job role, then that's what's important. Now with Van der Sar, you've got a bonus here because you've got someone who knows what they're doing, but also gets the club and knows the club. So I think that would be an absolutely fantastic, and the fans would love it, wouldn't they? Imagine that. Van der Sar is your director of football, Solskjaer is your manager, you've got Carrick and Phelan. It's what dreams are made of.
Yeah, it is magic. Yeah, I mean, Van der Sar, I love the guy. I think he brings a very knowledgeable, very composed head to such a big job. There was other names I think mentioned as well. I think Paul Mitchell was one that was thrown around, but I think that was more closely linked to Pochettino. I think that was almost a lure for Pochettino to come in because he was such good mates with him. I think that has been quashed by Ed Woodward. I'm not sure. I think I read that somewhere. I think another one that was mentioned was Jordi Cruyff. I think that was mentioned around the time of the PSG game. I think he was supposed to be in Manchester or something. And I think he's had some experience in a role like a sporting director role as well. But again, will it come to fruition? We don't know. But yeah, certainly Van der Sar. I mean, look at the DNA of the club. It's there. He's had the experience. As you said, Matthew, coming from a club like Ajax, consistently producing fantastic young talent. I mean, yeah, it seems the most obvious, but we never know. We might not even appoint one knowing the Glazers and Woodward, but you never know.
And you just know that Van der Sar, not only would he love that job, but he would put his heart and soul into it. Because you think back to when he joined us, he was ready to retire.
Yeah.
After playing for Fulham. And then Fergie plucked him out and then gave him a Champions League medal.
Yeah, not bad.
So, so it'd be a great story as well. But I think he would be an ideal candidate and someone that would give everything to the job.
Yeah, I agree. Moving on, Riley Kendrick. Will the summer transfer window be different than years past? Obviously, we're all hopeful it will be, so Ole can build the squad that he needs to have to continue to improve. But what are your thoughts? Will upper management finally throw their support behind a manager? We did touch upon this briefly, but do you think it'll be different this year? Math, what do you first?
I hope so. Whether it will actually be like that is a different story. Although I do say, in terms of years after Fergie, this is Woody's biggest year, because he's not just got any old manager who before joining United has no connection really to the supporters, to the club, whatever. But with this appointment, he knows that this is someone who the fans absolutely adore and someone who the fans are going to side over in almost every single situation. So I think he knows that he has to deliver in the next few transfer windows in order for us to actually get back to where Ole wants us to be and where the fans want us to be. So I think he might put in an extra effort. But at the same time, it is Woodward. You don't know what he's going to have an absolute clanger of a window, or he'll buy about 4 or 5 amazing players. It just needs to be the issue with him.
Yeah. Paul?
I think it will be based on the reports of the transfer strategy being completely different. So I think it will be in that respect, in terms of the profile of player that we're going to be bringing in. I think they'll be looked at a bit more closely, a bit more scouting, a bit more thought put into it. So I think in that respect, we will see a different transfer window. In terms of the Glazers finally throwing their support behind the manager, I think, like I was saying earlier, I think this is where I was going with what I was saying earlier. They have, supported the managers, in the past. We've seen lots of money spent, but not quite to the point where it brings us to where we need to be. And I think that's what's going to continue. I don't think they're just going to suddenly start throwing loads and loads of money, but I think the change in transfer strategy will be what helps us. Yeah, sure, it's going to be another process. It's going to be lengthy. It's going to be a process that takes a few years to get the team where it needs to be. But we'll get there. So yeah, yes, it will be a different transfer window because of the strategy. We'll be bringing in a different profile of player. But no, I don't think they're going to start throwing hundreds and hundreds of millions at the club, which they haven't done. They have, but not in one go to bring us to where we should be in such a short space of time. Do you see what I'm trying to say?
Yeah.
I think it's going to continue along that vein where it will be, gradual build. But I think the player we bring in will be a better quality, more, potential, more carefully considered, should I say?
Yeah, and I think that's where we're going to see the biggest change. I mean, it's all well and good throwing ridiculous sums of money at certain players for big name signings, but it doesn't always guarantee you success. What I hope will happen in this window and the windows to come is Ole will have more of an input than possibly Mourinho and previous managers did, because I think with the likes of Mourinho, I think there was a few signings there that were more commercial based than fitting into his system and his style of play. So I think with Ole, what I'd rather us do is buy players that fit the profile and the system rather than just buying them for the name. And usually that means paying less for them, but I mean, all the better if they fit in and they're decent players and they fit into our system. I think that is more important than just throwing money at big names. We've got to look at what style of football we want to play and what ethos Ole and his staff want to take forward, and looking who fits the bill, because we know from Ole, he said that he is not going to change. So we know a few things. We know he's going to want to work the socks off the players. He said that he wants to be one of the hardest working and the fittest teams in the league. So we know we're going to be playing fast, direct football. So, if, in terms of midfield and attack, we're looking at pace, we're looking at directness, we're looking at intensity. So, looking at players like maybe Lukaku and Mata and players like that, will they stick at United? Who knows? But I think looking at transfer windows and transfer targets, we're going to have to scout more carefully, as you said, Paul, and we're going to have to buy people who fit the profile, not just chucking money because they've done X, Y, and Z at this club for so many years. So yeah, I think it will be a little bit different, but I don't mind if we spend a bit less, as long as we get the right players, which we haven't done for many years.
Exactly. And not only that, if we're not going to be spending so much on individual players, if we're spreading the cost a bit more on more youthful signings, that might mean that we can bring in more. So instead of only 2 or 3, we might be able to bring in 3 or 4 players. Do you know what I mean? Each summer, which would help us massively.
Yeah.
Obviously, depending on whether or not we can offload some of the deadwood.
I mean, fingers crossed. Yeah, I mean, exactly what you said. We've on the surface, we've got not a bad starting 11, but it's strength and depth where we really struggle, especially in the wide areas, fullback, wingers as well. So I think, if we can bring in more players, spend less, but bring in more quality, all the better for us. United be right. Do you think Ole's permanent appointment will have an impact on his and all the players' effort and performance? Well, we've touched upon that in some depth in previous discussions, so thank you for that question. And then to finish us off, to put a damper on things right before we leave.
This is the one I was on about earlier.
That's it. Ike Iguala. Heard Ole's been appointed manager, and I am not happy about it. So many things need to be put right at the club, and his position alone cannot get it done. Hope I am not the only killjoy feeling this way. Interesting take. Thoughts? Do you reflect his sentiments? Do you see where he's coming from, or do you just a little bit confused with it?
I mean, on the surface, you can't really disagree too much because there are more problems at Man United. But at the same time, I think this is one of those days where we can just all be happy as a fan base. So I don't really think there's any major issues, to be honest. But yeah, like, I agree, but I disagree at the same time.
Yeah.
See, now I think that. So I'm going to put some words into Ike Iguala's mouth here. So, dude, I do apologize, Ike, but when he says, "Heard Ollie's been appointed manager and I'm not happy about it," I don't think he means that. I don't think he's. I mean, I could be wrong. He might not like Ollie, but I don't think that's the case. I don't think he's unhappy about Ollie being appointed, but he's more unhappy about the fact that nothing else has been done above him. You know, no one else, a director of football, hasn't been brought in to help shake things up. The fact that the Glazers are still in charge, Ed Woodward's still there. I think that is probably what Ike's getting at, is that other things haven't been taken care of, which at the end of the day, they can't be, really. No. The Glazers aren't going to fire Ed because, let's be honest, Ed has done wonders for the club financially. Yeah. Okay, he's great at what he does in that respect. Yeah. He's made the Glazers a lot of money. So that's not going to change. So the only thing that can change is the manager. And, you know, as far as I'm concerned at the moment, as things stand, there isn't anybody who's a better candidate than Ollie. So I'm absolutely thrilled that he's been given the job. Imagine he didn't get the job. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? Imagine we got into the top four, probably didn't get past Barcelona, but let's say we give them a fight at least, but got into the top four. Imagine then they turned around and said, yeah, we're going for Pochettino.
Yeah.
It would be cruel, first of all, but there would be uproar, I think, within the fan base. That'd be absolutely criminal, and rightly so. I mean, to do that as a temporary manager, I mean, look, he may not succeed. We may end up finding ourselves mid-table come January next season. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? It's a possibility. I don't think that will happen personally, but it's a possibility. You never know. But I do think what Ike's saying there is that he's not happy about all the other things being done. And yeah, that's what I reckon. But Ike, if I'm wrong, please tell me. If you don't like Ollie, let us know why.
Yeah, I can. Yeah, I'm with you here, Paul. I think maybe he's more frustrated. Again, we could be wrong. More frustrated that things haven't been put in place before the manager's been appointed. But as you said, it's not an overnight job. That's a massively lengthy process. If they were going to appoint a director of football, and I think appointing a manager before a director of football is the smartest thing to do anyway, because at the end of the day, your manager is in charge of the football aspect of the club. And I think if you appoint a director of football first, and then you bring in a manager, I think the director of football has already got maybe a foothold in certain aspects of the club that maybe the manager would have rather had an input on. In terms of Ed, I'm completely with you. I think Ed needs to stay at the club because I think he's fantastic at what he does. I just don't want him to touch anything football related at all. In terms of commercial aspects and sponsorship deals, I don't think there's anyone better in world football at getting them done as Ed Woodward. So he needs to stay in that capacity. But yeah, obviously the Glazers aren't going to leave anytime soon. They're making too much money. And a director of football does need to be appointed, but whether the Glazers and Ed see that as a priority, who knows, to be honest. Depends on how well Ole does. If Ole, comes in next season now, maybe wins a trophy, does well in the league, does well in the Champions League, they're going to see a need for a director of football and another position that's going to cost them hundreds of thousands, maybe even millions of pounds a year. No, they're not going to do it. So it all depends, I think. But I think Matthew's right. It's just a day that we need to be happy and just hope that Ole does succeed and he gives us something to cheer about going forward.
Excellent.
And that is it. Finito.
Brilliant. Well, that's another podcast wrapped up then, just over an hour. Not too bad at all. Matthew, it's been a pleasure. Thank you for joining us again. Is he on mute?
He's on mute, isn't he?
I've done it again. I do it every single stream on Andrew's channel, but not here. Absolute shocker for myself, I'm not going to lie. But yeah, cheers for having me on. I think that's 3 weeks in a row now. So
I think it is. Yeah, that's right. Do you want to give out your Twitter details and your Etsy store?
Sure.
Offside graphics, whatever. Yeah.
Twitter is @_Matthew, so @_MAFFOO, and to celebrate Ole getting the job, I've done 25% off every single poster relating to Ole Gunnar Solskjaer on the store up until I think the 7th of, I was going to say 7th of October, 7th of April. So if you want to get yourself a print, then get in there pretty quickly before that sale runs out.
Excellent. And Ash, thank you again for joining me as always. Do you want to give out your details?
Yeah, it's at Ashboyo, ASHBOIO.
And you can follow myself as well as at Paul Gardiner MU. Our Talking Manchester United podcast account is at United Stand Pod. Do follow the main United Stand account as well at United Stand MUFC. As you are all probably aware by now, this podcast is also available on YouTube. So be sure to, if you are watching or listening on YouTube, subscribe, drop a like and give us a comment as well. Give us your thoughts on the podcast and the topics discussed. Also, don't forget to subscribe to Red Bearded Red. That's Andrew Southwick's Manchester United, and he covers other sports as well, American sports. Great channel to watch, especially for the United stuff, because we're all United fans. So get over there and subscribe to his channel, and also Van Cam as well. I don't need to say anything about Van Cam. I do it every week. You know what that's about. So get over there and do all of that. Ash, I'm assuming you'll be joining us next week. Matthew, if you're available next week as well, you're welcome to join us again.
Yeah, should be available next week.
Excellent. We'll try and get Andrew on, and I want to get Martin back on again soon as well. So plenty of people to join us. It's better when there's more of us, I reckon, instead of just listening to me and Ash ramble on all the time. Excellent. Anyway, cheers, guys.
Thank you.
And we'll be back next week.